Welcome back to Real Time, guys. Today we are continuing my review of Stephen King's It. First airing in 1990 as a two-part TV miniseries. Thus, in my first video, I reviewed part 1 of the film, and today I'm continuing with part 2. If you haven't had a chance to see that first video, you can check it out in the link in the description I've included down below. And for those of you who have already, thanks again for coming back. Also, this is pretty much going to be a spoiler review, but I mean, you're not missing anything special. All the best stuff is in part 1 anyway, so if anything, I'm doing you a favor, but if you really care that much, you've been warned. Alright, so it's been 30 years since the original defeat of Pennywise, and as we and all the Losers Club learned from Mike in part 1,
it's back.
So it's time to reassemble the Lucky Seven and take that nightmare-inducing clown down once and for all. Let's go! Eddie.
In fact, I've never even been with any.
Girly boy.
Would you believe I used to be fat? Well, not just fat, but a regular butterball. You bet your fern I was. We used to say that as kids. You bet your fern. But I was F-A-T.
No.
Yeah. Oh.
Stanley?
I finally made it, guys.
Right, yeah, so first spoiler, the Lucky Seven is down 1. Stan couldn't take coming back to face the clown again, so at the end of part 1, he opts out. So to bring you up to speed, the first part is told in a series of flashbacks as the adults are setting out to return to Derry. Now in the second half, we get to see more of them all grown up. Because if there's anything we really wanted to see more of, it was the adults, right?
Yeah, that's what I wanted, you turkey.
So as each of them are edging closer to each other, they're all encountering Pennywise in some way. And it's here we're already starting to see our first flaws emerge. So Eddie's encounter is passable, and Bev's is okay, I guess. Though apparently a side effect of drinking blood tea is developing a bad British accent.
I call all the pretty young girls, miss. Don't take offense. No. Well, go on, dear. Drink it while it's nice and hot.
Yeah, well, at least it ends in a way that sort of suggests something creepy. Then there's Bill and Richie's experience, which is basically Pennywise doing stand-up comedy.
If you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
I guess I can see why they thought that'd be scary. Oh, and Ben's encounter really cracks me up because it's like Pennywise isn't even really trying to scare him. Like, he's just out doing his day job and just happens to see Ben in the cab and is like, oh, hey, there he is. I'm sorry. After all of this, the Losers Club finally reunites and they all get refamiliarized. Especially with Beverly.
How's your wife?
One bad Chinese meal later and we're back to planning how we're going to take down Pennywise. Or are we? They take some time to inform the gang of Stan's death. With some more stand-up.
Sorry I'm late. Well, let's see who's here. Billy boy.
Boy, that heightened the tension, didn't it? So, they start to set up the return of Henry Bowers, with again something potentially creepy in the form of Belch, which is surprisingly effective when they aren't trying to force Tim Curry's voice down his throat.
I need you, Henry. We all need you.
I mean, we know it's Pennywise, obviously. There's no need to spell it out for us. Anywho, the orderly meets his worst nightmare in the form of... yeah. I'm serious, you guys. Where are the scares in this one? I mean, it's like every time this movie has a good idea, they completely diffuse it with something just ridiculous. Case in point, back at the hotel, Ben is getting his turn refamiliarizing with Bev until he realizes he's been making out with...
Kiss me, fat boy.
Okay, I'll at least admit that the prospect of kissing Tim Curry does sound frightening. And then Henry Bowers appears in order to try and kill Mike. Not exactly Norman Bates, is he? No, seriously, they couldn't have at least shot this in a way that built suspense. I mean, did we really need to see him come out of the bathroom? Couldn't they have just made us feel safe by following Mike's perspective and then have him close the window and Henry come out as a scare? I mean, what is this crap? This is exactly what I'm talking about, and it goes throughout the entirety of the film. It's like you have a good idea, use it. And it's like at every turn they're actively choosing not to. Alright, so Henry accidentally stabs himself.
No.
I hope that's my last word.
If anybody asks, party got out of hand, dancing on the table, you took a fall.
Ben and Bev start knacking on each other for real now, and oh wait, almost forgot. Okay, get this. They return to the hotel, and they cover up Henry Bowers' body with a blanket. And they're just gonna leave now.
People, that is a dead body. You're not seriously suggesting we walk out of here and leave it lying there?
Yes, that's what he's suggesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
I think we ought to call the police.
I think Eddie's right. You don't understand. This whole town is it in some way. All of them.
Bill's right.
Okay, so I skipped over this because it really doesn't make that much sense, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. So, Bill, Mike, and Bev all believe that it has sort of infected the town of Derry into choosing to ignore the presence of Pennywise and his influence. And they explain this to us by first showing us a teacher who didn't want to expose her students to the town's dark and grisly history.
Shame on her.
And then by showing us an old man who went inside of his house instead of helping Beverly one time. In light of this, they address the current situation in the following way.
I suggest we just turn on the TV, hang a do not disturb sign on the door, go outside, then figure out what to do.
I second that.
Right. I'm sure the hotel staff or the police won't find it a bit odd that the man that was rooming there the night before took a fall, wound up stabbed, and that there's a dead man on his floor now.
It will be a groundbreaking case when it inevitably goes to trial.
Can we speed this along? The crew meanders a bit, but agrees to go back to face the clown in the sewers. Bill learns that his wife, yes, she's still a plot point in this movie, has been taken captive by Pennywise. We then see a scene with Georgie again, which admittedly does prove somewhat effective. This is short-lived, however, as the losers venture further into the sewers where they stop at the small suspicious-looking door of Yoda's hut, and it's here where Eddie reveals he's a virgin.
Thanks for sharing.
We then finally get to the moment we've all been waiting for. That's right. It is time to see this being in its true final form. You want to know the answer to the question, what is it?
Don't you want it? Don't you want it? Don't you want it? Don't you want it? Don't you want it? Don't you want it?
And that's it. Apparently it is a Harryhausen effect.
When will they ever learn?
I don't suppose anybody thought to bring anything really useful like a machine gun.
No, but thank God Bev brought her lucky slingshot. So Bill's plan is to literally talk it to death, but gets distracted. Ben follows suit, as does Richie. And I guess there's your Three Stooges reference. Then Eddie delivers perhaps the least heroic dialogue I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
I believe in Santa Claus. I believe in the Easter Bunny. I believe in the Tooth Fairy. But I don't believe in you.
Oh, for God's sake, just waste this, Nancy. So Bev gets her slingshot and her accuracy with it back, and they hurt the creature. Then they chase after it and, well, they rip its heart out.
Fatality.
They save Bill's wife, and we are now privy to a host of cliches. Richie leaves and goes back to comedy, and since Eddie's dead, they make it a point to say his co-star looks and sounds just like him.
Friendship.
Ben and Bev end up together. Mike considers leaving Derry. And Bill, well, his wife is in a sort of catatonic state, which they resolve by, wait for it, riding a bike down a hill. The second part of Stephen King's It is not rated, though it's also likely to garner a PG-13 rating for mature thematic material, violence, some blood, some mild language, and maybe some frightening images. Points for finding them, though.
I will kill you.
So yeah, I know you were all just dying to learn all of that on your own, but that is the second part of It in a nutshell. So what have we learned? Well, there are a few effective moments, but for the most part, this half is as boring as we feared it would be when foreshadowed in part 1. The scares just aren't there, and they're surprisingly less Pennywise than we would have expected. In his place, we have far too many ineffective plot points, plot holes, and melodramatic setups and performances. This one does barely enough to keep you remotely intrigued. I am giving part 2 of It 1.5 out of 5.
Why is it so mean?
Guys, thank you so much again for watching. I know I may not like this one very much anymore, but it was still a fun review to make for you. So guys, I've kicked off this 1990 series with a Thrillamedy and a Stephen King film in time for Halloween. My next 2 reviews are actually going to follow the same suit, and I'm going to give you another Thrillamedy and another Stephen King film that came out in 1990. Can you guess which ones they are? Let's put them in the comments below, and we'll see if you're right when it comes time for the reviews. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. You're on Real Time with Joe.
Ta-ta, girls.